Emotional self-regulation is one of the most silent yet powerful sources of respect a human being can cultivate. It begins inside the nervous system long before it is visible in behavior. Psychology teaches us that when emotions arise, anger, fear, frustration, insecurity, the brain's most primitive systems want to react immediately. To defend, to attack, to escape, to prove. But the person who learns to pause in that moment, OT insensibles, to create space between stimulus and response, sends an unspoken message to everyone around them: I am in control of myself. And self-control is one of the strongest signals of inner strength the human mind can perceive. When someone reacts impulsively, raises their voice, becomes defensive, or lets their emotions overflow, the brain of the observer does not see passion, it sees instability. Instability creates uncertainty, and uncertainty erodes respect. On the other hand, when a person remains composed under pressure, speaks calmly when challenged, and does not allow their ego to hijack their behavior, something shifts in the dynamic. Calm becomes authority. Silence becomes confidence. Restraint becomes power. Emotional self-regulation does not mean suppressing emotions. Suppression creates tension, resentment, and eventually emotional explosions. Regulation means awareness. It means recognizing what you feel without letting that feeling decide who you become in that moment. It means understanding that emotions are information, not commands. A regulated person feels deeply but responds wisely. So the human brain is constantly evaluating safety. We are drawn to people whose emotional states are predictable and stable. When someone is emotionally regulated, others feel they can trust them. Trust and respect are neurologically linked. We respect those who make us feel safe, not those who make us feel small or anxious. This is why leaders who remain calm during crisis inspire loyalty, while reactive leaders create fear. Fear may create obedience, but it never creates respect. There is also a profound connection between emotional regulation and dignity. When someone does not need to shout, insult, or dominate to express themselves, they protect their dignity and the dignity of others. Dignity is magnetic. People instinctively admire those who can disagree without humiliating, who can set limits without aggression, who can express disappointment without cruelty. Emotional regulation also signals maturity. It communicates that a person has done the inner work, that they understand themselves enough to manage their inner world. This maturity makes others feel they are in the presence of someone solid, someone reliable, someone who will not collapse under pressure or create chaos in moments of stress. Respect is rarely demanded and almost always observed. It grows when people witness how you handle frustration, how you respond to criticism, how you behave when things don't go your way. In those moments, emotional self-regulation becomes visible. Insensible, I suppose. And when people see that you do not give your power away to every emotion that passes through you, they begin to offer you something invaluable, their respect. Boundaries are one of the most misunderstood psychological tools, yet they are one of the clearest expressions of self-respect. Many people confuse boundaries with rejection, selfishness, or emotional distance, but in reality, boundaries are an act of honesty. They communicate where you end and where others begin. When you do not define your limits, the world will define them for you, and usually in ways that leave you exhausted, resentful, or invisible. Psychology shows us that people do not respect those who abandon themselves to keep others comfortable. Every time you say yes when your body and mind are saying no, you send a subtle message: my needs come second. Over time, this message is not only received by others, but internalized by yourself. The brain learns patterns, and when it learns that your time, energy, or values are negotiable, it treats them as such. Others unconsciously follow the same pattern. Respect begins to erode, not because people are cruel, but because you taught them that access to you has no cost. Healthy boundaries are not about controlling others. They are about taking responsibility for yourself. They allow relationships to exist without resentment. When boundaries are absent, anger accumulates silently. When they are present, clarity replaces confusion. Clarity creates psychological safety, and safety strengthens respect. People feel more comfortable around someone who is clear than someone who is constantly overextending and silently keeping score. Setting boundaries requires emotional courage. It often activates fear of rejection, guilt, or being perceived as difficult. The nervous system interprets boundary setting as a threat to belonging, which is why so many people avoid it. Yet paradoxically, it is through boundaries that authentic connection is possible. When you are honest about your limits, relationships become more real, more balanced, and more respectful. You are no longer performing acceptance, you are allowing it. There is also a profound link between boundaries and identity. When you protect your time and values, you are reinforcing who you are. The brain needs consistency to feel stable, and boundaries provide that consistency. They anchor you to your principles and prevent you from living in constant reaction to others' demands. A person who lives from boundaries rather than obligation walks with a different posture, speaks with more clarity, and makes decisions with more confidence. Others sense this alignment immediately. Respect does not grow from availability without limits. It grows from discernment. When you choose where to invest your energy, people understand that your presence is intentional, not automatic. This does not make you distant, it makes you grounded. Grounded people are trusted. Trusted people are respected. Boundaries are not rigid rules. They are living expressions of self-awareness. They evolve as you evolve, but they always communicate the same message: I value myself enough to protect what matters. And when you consistently live from that place, the world adapts. People adjust their behavior. Dynamics shift. Respect becomes a natural response to the quiet confidence of someone who knows where they stand. Consistency between words and actions is one of the most powerful psychological foundations of respect, because the human mind is wired to search for coherence. From an early age, the brain learns to trust patterns. When someone says one thing and does another, the nervous system registers uncertainty. Uncertainty creates doubt, and doubt weakens respect. But when a person's behavior aligns with their promises, even in small and unobserved moments, the brain relaxes. It recognizes reliability. And reliability is deeply respected. Many people believe respect comes from charisma, intelligence, or status, yet psychology shows that credibility is far more influential. Credibility is built slowly through repeated alignment between intention and behavior. Every time you follow through on what you say, you reinforce a psychological contract with others. You are telling them, without words, that you are predictable in the best possible way. Predictability creates safety, and safety allows trust to grow. This alignment becomes especially important during moments of pressure. Anyone can speak well when circumstances are easy, but respect is tested when discomfort appears. When it costs you something to keep your word, your character becomes visible. The brain pays close attention in these moments. It notes who disappears, who excuses themselves, and who remains consistent despite inconvenience. People may not consciously analyze this, but emotionally they remember it. There is also an internal dimension to coherence. When your actions align with your values, you experience less internal conflict. The brain does not have to justify contradictions or manage guilt. This inner alignment produces calm, confidence, and emotional stability. Others sense this immediately. Since a person who is at peace with themselves communicates certainty without arrogance. That certainty naturally attracts respect. Inconsistent behavior, on the other hand, creates cognitive dissonance, not only in others but within oneself. The mind becomes fragmented, and that fragmentation leaks into communication, decision-making, and emotional presence. Over time, people stop relying on inconsistent individuals. They may still interact with them, but the deeper layer of respect slowly disappears. Consistency does not mean perfection. It means integrity. It means acknowledging mistakes, correcting them, and realigning behavior with intention. Interestingly, owning an error can increase respect more than hiding it. The brain responds positively to accountability because it restores coherence. When words like, "oh, was wrong," are followed by changed behavior, trust deepens rather than weakens. Small actions matter more than grand declarations. Showing up when you said you would, being honest when it is uncomfortable, and maintaining the same values, whether someone is watching or not, all contribute to a stable psychological image. Over time, people stop questioning your intentions. They know where you stand. And when people know where you stand, they feel secure around you. Respect grows quietly through repetition. It is not built in dramatic moments but in daily alignment. When your words and actions move in the same direction, you become someone others can lean on, someone whose presence reduces uncertainty. And in a world full of mixed signals and shifting masks, coherence becomes rare. Rare qualities are noticed. And what is noticed, trusted, and consistent is deeply respected. Calm presence is one of the most underestimated forms of strength. Yet psychology shows it is one of the most influential. In a world saturated with no agency and constant reaction, the person who remains centered stands out immediately. The human brain is highly sensitive to emotional cues, and it instinctively looks for stability in others. When someone enters a room without rushing, without needing to dominate the space, and without reacting impulsively, their presence sends a powerful signal of inner order. That inner order is often interpreted as competence, wisdom, and authority. Many people confuse authority with control, believing that being louder, more assertive, or more forceful will earn them respect. In reality, the nervous system responds very differently. Aggression activates defense. Loudness creates tension. Force invites resistance. Calm, however, disarms. It lowers emotional defenses and creates psychological safety. When people feel safe, they listen. When they listen, influence naturally follows. A calm presence is not passive. It is deeply active. It requires emotional regulation, self-awareness, and confidence rooted in self-trust rather than external validation. The calm person does not need to rush to prove their intelligence or value. They trust that their presence alone is enough. This lack of urgency communicates security. Security is magnetic. People are drawn to those who seem anchored within themselves. Psychologically, calm individuals help regulate the emotional states of others. The brain has mirror neurons that unconsciously synchronize with the emotional tone of the people around us. When someone remains steady in moments of stress, others begin to slow down as well. This makes the calm person a reference point, someone others look to when situations feel overwhelming. Being a reference point is one of the deepest forms of respect. Silence also plays a crucial role in calm authority. The ability to pause before speaking, to listen fully, and to choose words carefully gives weight to communication. When someone speaks less but with intention, their words carry more impact. The brain associates restraint with thoughtfulness and depth. This is why people often remember what calm individuals say long after louder voices fade. There is also humility in calmness. It reflects an understanding that not every battle needs to be fought, and not every opinion needs to be voiced. This discernment signals emotional intelligence. Emotionally intelligent people create environments where others feel seen and heard rather than judged or overshadowed. Feeling seen is a powerful driver of respect. Calm presence becomes especially visible during conflict. While others escalate, the calm person stays grounded. While others react, they respond. This contrast is striking. It shifts power dynamics without confrontation. People intuitively trust those who do not lose themselves in chaos. Trust grows into respect, not because of dominance but because of steadiness. In a society that rewards speed and intensity, calmness can be mistaken for weakness. But psychology reveals the opposite. Calmness requires strength, a discipline, and self-mastery. It reflects a nervous system that is regulated and a mind that is clear. And when people encounter that kind of presence, they feel it immediately. They may not be able to explain it as Julian sensibles, but they know they are in the presence of someone who does not need to raise their voice to be heard, someone whose calm speaks louder than any command. Calm presence is one of the most underestimated sources of respect because it works quietly, without spectacle, yet it leaves a deep psychological imprint. The human brain is constantly scanning the environment for signals of stability. When someone remains calm, especially in moments of pressure, the nervous system of those around them begins to relax. Calm is interpreted as control, and control is associated with competence. This is why, even without speaking, a calm person can command attention and influence a room. In situations of uncertainty or conflict, most people react instinctively. Voices rise, gestures become sharp, and emotions take over. The brain reads this as loss of control. But when someone maintains a steady tone, measured movements, and thoughtful poses, they stand apart. This contrast is powerful. It communicates that they are not overwhelmed by the situation, or insensible, that they are capable of holding complexity without collapsing into chaos. Others instinctively begin to look to them for direction, not because they demand authority, but because they embody it. Calm presence is often confused with passivity, yet psychologically it is the opposite. It requires a regulated nervous system and a strong sense of self. A calm person does not need to rush to defend their ego or prove their worth. They are not driven by the fear of being ignored or misunderstood. This inner security is felt immediately. People sense when someone is grounded, and they trust that grounding. Trust is one of the strongest foundations of respect. There is also something profoundly reassuring about someone who listens fully. Calm presence allows space for others to speak without interruption, judgment, or urgency. When people feel genuinely heard, their defenses lower. Feeling heard creates connection, and connection increases respect. The calm individual becomes associated with clarity and fairness rather than reactivity and chaos. Psychologically, calmness has a regulating effect on groups. Through emotional contagion, others begin to mirror that stability. Meetings become more focused, conflicts soften, and communication improves. Over time, the calm person becomes a reference point. There's someone others rely on during moments of stress. Being a reference point is one of the clearest signs of respect. It means others trust your emotional steadiness when theirs is compromised. Silence is another key element of calm presence. The ability to pause before responding shows thoughtfulness and discernment. Words spoken from calm carry more weight than words spoken from urgency. The brain associates restraint with wisdom. This is why people often remember the few words spoken by a calm individual more than the many words spoken by someone reactive. Calm presence is especially powerful because it cannot be faked for long. It comes from inner work, from self-awareness, and from the ability to tolerate discomfort without losing oneself. In a world that rewards speed, noise, and constant reaction, calmness stands out as rare. And what is rare is noticed. What is noticed and felt as stable becomes trusted. And what is trusted, without effort or force, becomes deeply respected. Living with purpose is one of the most subtle yet powerful psychological drivers of respect because it gives coherence to a person's choices, behavior, and presence. When someone is guided by clear values, their decisions stop being reactive and start being intentional. The human brain is highly sensitive to intention. We instinctively notice when someone is moving towards something meaningful, rather than away from fear, approval, or insecurity. That clarity creates a sense of direction, and direction is deeply respected. A person without purpose often lives in constant negotiation with external validation. They adapt themselves to be accepted, change their opinions to fit the room, and make decisions based on how they will be perceived. This creates inconsistency and emotional tension, which others subconsciously detect. In contrast, a person with purpose does not need to impress. Their sense of worth is anchored internally. This inner anchoring creates calm, confidence, and emotional stability. People feel it immediately, even if they cannot explain why. A purpose acts as an internal compass. It helps a person say no without guilt and yes without hesitation. This decisiveness reduces confusion in relationships and environments. Psychology shows that clarity reduces anxiety. When people know where someone stands, they feel safer around them. Safety builds trust, and trust is one of the core components of respect. A purposeful person does not need to control others because their behavior is already aligned with something larger than momentary comfort. There is also resilience in purpose. When challenges arise, people who live with meaning are less likely to collapse emotionally. Their nervous system has a reason to endure discomfort. This resilience is admired. The brain associates perseverance with strength, especially when it is quiet and consistent rather than dramatic. Watching someone stay aligned with their values under pressure creates deep respect because it reveals character. Purpose also gives weight to actions. Small behaviors take on significance when they are connected to values. The way someone treats others, handles responsibility, or responds to adversity becomes meaningful rather than random. This meaning creates coherence. The brain loves coherence because it reduces uncertainty. A coherent person feels reliable, and reliability fosters respect. Importantly, living with purpose does not mean being rigid or self-righteous. It means being guided rather than driven. It allows flexibility without losing direction. A purposeful person can adapt without betraying themselves. This balance between firmness and openness reflects emotional maturity, which is consistently respected across cultures and relationships. People are naturally drawn to those who live with meaning because purpose creates energy. Not frantic energy, but a grounded energy. The kind that inspires rather than overwhelms. It invites others to reflect on their own values without forcing anything. Influence born from purpose feels clean, not manipulative. In a world that constantly pushes distraction, comparison, and instant gratification, purpose becomes a stabilizing force. It shapes how a person speaks, listens, decides, and relates. Over time, others recognize that this person is not easily shaken, not easily swayed, insensible, and not easily lost. And when people encounter someone who moves through life with that level of alignment, respect is not something they choose to give. It is something that arises naturally, almost inevitably,